guys, I'm here with a guest design team project for Sacrafters, and I'm starting with an 8x8 canvas, and what you can see me doing here is just covering it with gesso. I decided to use the Sacrafters Circles chipboard as the main feature for this canvas, and I'll put all the product details of the things I used below. So what you can see me doing here is using 3 different colours of purple paint, and I decided to make this canvas as purple as possible, so keep it all purple with different shades of purple. I've used the Artiste acrylic paint in Iris, the Crafters acrylic paint in Lilac Frost, and also the Crafters acrylic paint in Bright Purple. And I'm just adding those 3 different colours in random places over the canvas to start. Next you'll see me spraying the canvas with some water and gently tapping it on the side to try and make the colours run a little, as this gives a better effect for the type of background that I was looking for. Next I'm using some StazOn ink and some stamps just to add something a bit extra to my background. The stamp I'm using here is from a local arts and crafts shop, and the other stamps I use are some old stamps from my stash from Prima. Once I've put all the stamps down, I actually go over them with a bit of white paint just to lighten them all up a little. Next I use the first of 3 Sacrafters stencils, and this is one of the Friends script stencils which I had used with some texture paste. Here I'm showing you the Circles chipboard, which is going to be the main focus of my entire canvas, and this is quite a new item in Sacrafters store, and again it will be linked in the description box below. I'm currently just covering it in some gesso, and then I will go ahead and use the same colour paints on this that I used on the canvas. Once they're all dry, I use some StazOn ink and another old Prima stencil and stamp a little bit over some of the Circles chipboard. I then go over that with a little bit of white paint, the same as I did with the canvas, just to dull it down a little. Next you'll see I've printed some photos from my computer in quite a small size, and I've decided that I'm going to try and fit a photo in the centre of every one of the circles except the very, very, very tiny ones. I do a little bit of this off camera as it could be quite boring to watch, but I do the first few on camera so that you can see how I'm going. Here I have all the photos adhered, so I'm just coming back to show you what that looks like before we carry on with the canvas ready to go forward. Here I'm using the second of my Sacrafters stencil, and this is quite a new stencil. This is the heart stencil, and again I'm just using some texture paste with this. I go on the front of the canvas to start with, and then I start doing a little bit round the sides, the same as I did with the stamps. Now I'm using the Sacrafters Splatters stencil, and this has to be one of my favourites, and again I'm doing the same as I did with the other two stencils before. To give some of that white texture paste some colour, I'm using Distress Ink by Tim Holtz in Shaded Lilac and Dusty Concord. I'm just putting that on with a pad, and then I'm spraying it with water to make it run, the same as I did with the paints at the beginning, and this just gives me the nice runny effect background that I was looking for, and also colours up some of that white texture paste. Next you'll see me spraying over the whole entire thing with just a little bit of white paint, and then making that run just to dull everything down a little bit again. Once that's all dry, I actually turn the canvas over and I start to paint the back. And I'm starting here with gesso, and I paint the back of the canvas as well as the wood on the inside, as well as some of the inside. Because at this point I've decided to make this an exploding canvas inspired by Miss Liberty 25, and I've made a few of these before, as you may well have seen. So I'm just preparing the back ready to stick in my paper. The paper I'm using is from Graphic 45, and I just cut it by 6.5 by 6.5, ready to adhere down. I adhere it on the inside with some Aleene's tacky glue and leave that to dry for quite a long time before I begin cutting it. Whilst that paper's drying, I prepare the bit for the background, and I have a bit of cardboard here, and as you can see I'm just cutting it to size. Then I rip all the top layer off, but I do actually leave a few pieces on just to give it a bit of added texture, so that it looks a bit better in the background. Once I've got this to how I want it, I just add some gesso and start by covering it in a thick layer of gesso. I dry that with my heat tool. going in with my X-Acto knife and I am cutting across in the middle of the canvas. Then I use my scissors to continue cutting out the shapes I want on the canvas to give it that exploding effect. Then I use a paint dabber and the Dusty Concord Distress ink to go around all of the edges. I then turn the canvas back over and spray it with water before using a paintbrush to begin curling all of my edges out. After they're all curled, I use a heat tool just to set them all in place a little before I decide whereabouts I'm going to stick them. Here, as you can see, I'm using some hot glue just to stick them in the place that I want them, just to make sure that they do actually stay in place. I take the piece of cardboard that I painted earlier and put it in the background to get an idea of what it's going to look like. Then I use the iris colour, the lightest of the paints, just to add a little bit to the background. So some is the iris colour and some stays the white gesso. I also add a little bit of the iris around the paper that I've curled out. Here I have some lace from my stash and I'm just sort of drooping it through the hole in the centre, and again I'm trying to work out where that circles chipboard is going to go, as well as the flowers, because I know that I want that circles chipboard to be the main focus. Here, this rosette you can see me sticking in is from Sacrafters, and I'm just using some wild orchid craft flowers on the inside. Then I go ahead and adhere the circles chipboard, and it didn't go too well with the hot glue, so I actually go in with a bit of Fabri-Tac to adhere that down, because I really want to make sure that that is the main focus. Then I use some flowers, and most of the fabric ones are from Craft Supplies 1, and the unfabric ones are Wild Orchid Crafts, and I really start embellishing this canvas now. Other than flowers, I use some more Sacrafters items, and I use a chipboard piece that says Unconditional Love, and I also use 3 of her small butterflies. So what you can see me doing here initially is painting all of those pieces in the iris colour paint to match the paint colours that we used on the canvas. Once they're all painted, I go ahead with embossing, and I emboss the word Unconditional in a Wow embossing powder in Mataline Violet. I then go ahead and emboss the word Love in a Wow embossing powder, which is Clear Sparkle. I use the same 2 embossing powders on the butterflies. Use a little bit of the iris coloured paint on the darker of the 2 butterflies and the word Unconditional, just to tie everything in a little bit better. Then you'll see me adhering them down to the canvas and working out the placement, etc. Because I want the title of my piece to be Unconditional Love, so I want that to show really well. Then I use the butterflies and I adhere them down over the canvas, and that about completes my project. So thank you very much for watching. Please see the links to the items in Sacrafters store below, and I'll see you with another guest design team project soon. Please comment, rate and subscribe. Thanks guys. Bye.